The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
23-year-old Kada Scott vanished after leaving her overnight shift at The Terrace at Chestnut Hill, an assisted living facility in northwest Philadelphia. Her car was found parked at the facility, but there's been no phone activity, no social media contact, no contact with friends or family since that night. In the days before her disappearance, she told loved ones she was being harassed by an unknown person on the phone. Family and police describe her disappearance as completely out of character, heightening fears for her safety. Authorities are treating the case urgently and are asking the public for any information, no matter how small. Tonight, where is Kada Scott? But first, Donna Adelson, the elegant Miami matriarch turned convicted conspirator, once seemed to have it all. Success, family, prestige. But beneath the polished surface, prosecutors say brewed a deadly scheme. They claim she orchestrated the murder of her former son-in-law, Florida State law professor Dan Markel, to end a bitter custody battle that tore her family apart. Now, after the conviction of her son, Charlie, Donna's own web of deceit has come crashing down. Secret recordings, coded messages, and wiretaps reveal a mother's chilling role in a cold-blooded plot. Once the matriarch of a proud family, she now sits behind bars, her empire in ruins, haunted by whispers of loyalty, manipulation, and murder. And today, Judgment Day for Donna Adelson as the judge hands down her sentence. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Judgment Day for Donna Adelson. But let's begin with Dan Markel. When I think of Dan Markel, I think of a loving father. I think of a man who lost his life for just that reason. Because he wanted to be with his children. He wanted to raise his children. Take a moment, think about all the stories that we've covered here on Court TV, then you see on the news every day about children who don't have dads, about children who all they want is their dad in their life. And this is a dad who gave his life trying to be in their lives. Why? It was a bitter custody battle. And the two men who killed him, Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera, had no other reason to kill him other than getting paid money by people who had money and people who had a reason why they wanted him out of the way. We've been covering this story for years. It has taken years for Donna Adelson to get to this point in the case. But the motive is super obvious. There were a couple friends of Dan Markel's who were interviewed by police almost immediately afterwards. They're trying to understand what's going on in Dan's life. And the first thing they said, yeah, look at the Adelson family. This looks like a murder to hire for me. These are just two people who knew Dan, friends of Dan, who knew what he was going through. And in their interview with police, I guess one of the first things they say, look at the Adelsons, this looks like a murder for hire. And guess what it was? The Adelsons in a murder for hire. Donna Adelson at her trial was silent really for the first time. We've heard her speak so often, whether it was in the bump video or in the conversations that she had or the emails or text messages that she was exchanging, the phone calls with her son Charlie 15, 20 times a day in the days surrounding all of this. And she spoke at her bond hearing, but when it was time to speak in front of the jury, the ones who must decide, is she or is she not a murderer, she was silent, exercising her right. And it didn't do anything to help her. I don't know if testifying would have helped her. She would have had to have convinced them that she was telling the truth. Something she hasn't been able to convince any of us watching the trial in all the statements that she's made. The facts are the facts. The money trail is the money trail. And then today she spoke, but a little too late. It was like she was trying to try the case all over again in front of the judge. Sentencing is the time where you're not debating, did she do it, did she not do it? The question is, what should your sentence be? Now, in a murder case like this in Florida, there's not a ton of discretion. I get it. But this is a moment where you can take responsibility for what you did. You can remain silent because you don't want to impact any potential appeal that you may have. I get that. I understand that. Why defendants sometimes don't speak. But if you are going to speak, do you think you're going to convince the judge that you didn't do it? Like, what is that all about? So today's allocution by Donna Adelson, by some could be deemed desperate, by others could be deemed insulting to the jury, to the system, and to Dan Markel's family, referring to her son-in-law, who she had nothing nice to say about, and all these emails and texts that we read, suddenly was talking about Danny and what a great man he was and what a great father he was. Too little, too late. Let's take a listen to Donna Adelson.
Thank you for letting me speak. My son-in-law, Dan Markel, was a fine and decent man. He was well-educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father. On July 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. It should have been just like any other day, an ordinary day in the life of Ben and Lincoln's father, but it wasn't. He didn't know when he left his boys off at daycare that would be the last time he would see them and the last time they would see him. He didn't know when he went to the gym afterwards that would be the last time he would exercise. And he didn't know when he drove home that his life would end within minutes. Danny wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us in his family, his friends, his colleagues in the legal community, and to his students at FSU Law School. Danny's boys each have a photo of themselves with their Abba, their dad, beside their beds. They grew up kissing the framed photo and saying, "Good night, Abba, I love you." The pictures and memories are all they have because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died. My grandsons were going to grow up without the father who loved them. I wondered, how could we help these boys through this trauma? It was then that my husband and I knew that the best way to honor Danny's memory would be to share with these children an abundance of love, the love that Danny would have given them if he were alive. It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanaw's trials, the state claimed she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind behind the murder. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it. With not one iota of actual evidence, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury that I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue, Mrs. Adelson, as it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Mrs. Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act? Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet, the state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop to the jury through the remainder of the trial. And the jury bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. Reasonable doubt. Many months ago, my attorneys filed a motion for a change of venue. An expert witness testified that Tallahassee had been barraged with over 9 years of negative social media, printed news, television news, and podcast publicity about my family. He explained to the court, both with evidence and demonstratives, that for me to receive a fair trial, it needed to be held in any of the researched and designated areas in the state of Florida other than Tallahassee. All I wanted was a level playing field, but the court wanted the trial here in the hotbed of Tallahassee. I sat through 3 days of jury selection. 180 potential jurors were asked if they had developed an opinion in my case. Those that answered yes also added, I believe she is guilty. Not one person, not one, said, I think she may be innocent. That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion for a change of venue, but the court denied the motion. One of my jurors admitted during jury selection that she had background information concerning what one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
What moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with elocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances which are properly given to the appellate court. What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
Could I have just one moment, please?
What happened to Danny is unforgivable. But I am an innocent woman convicted of this terrible crime without evidence. Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. he would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are two crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit. I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loved him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
Like I said, too little, too late. All these things, well, not all of them would be admissible, but these are things that you tell the jury who's going to decide whether or not you were or were not responsible for all of this. That was the time, that was the place. But she didn't take the stand. Let's bring in Court TV anchor Julie Janae, who's live outside the courthouse in Tallahassee. He's been covering this story for many, many years. Many years. And here we are. What was the reaction to this very unusual allocution?
Unusual allocution, Vinnie, and also an unsworn statement. She didn't want to be sworn in. There was a bit of back and forth with the judge, so this is not a statement that is ever going to be able to use against her in any way. She didn't want to go that route, but it was a bit of a shock to, I think, people inside of the courtroom who were watching this, that she chose this approach, this almost broken-hearted mother, loss of her son-in-law, like she was the victim here. I mean, it was uncomfortable, I think, for people who were listening, especially those who have a great rapport with Ruth Markel, who couldn't be here today because she's in Canada and was listening via Zoom. To realize this was the approach that was similar to the approach that Jackie Fulford, the defense attorney, took when they kicked off openings of this trial. And then once you started to hear her talk about her problems, Donna Adelson, I mean, with the trial, the change of venue, the issue with the jury and the judge and the way it was handled, then you started to see an exchange of looks in the gallery that this is how this is going to go in terms of what she's going to say. She's not necessarily going to be taking any ownership of anything. So there seemed to be this tension building around the statement, and then you heard the judge interrupt her a couple of times, and that caused her attorneys to have to huddle up. There was a break for about 5 minutes where they're trying to re-edit her statement on the fly while she was speaking. And then there was this moment that you don't want to happen inside of a courtroom if you are in the gallery.
Turn that phone off or step out.
And that phone belonged to none other than Harvey Adelson, her husband, who was sitting on the front row of the galleries. I think everyone collectively felt a little bit bad for him having to leave and be the one to interrupt the proceedings in that way. But a couple of officers went after him when he left, and then he came right back in for the rest of his wife's statement. So I think, Vinnie, for viewers, it may have felt like today didn't get to be enough about the victim because we didn't hear from the state. We didn't hear any victim impact statements, but they were done at the verdict a month and a week ago. And so that's the reason today the focus really was on Donna Adelson.
Yeah, I mean, it's in character with what we've seen from her from the beginning of all of this. Okay, so if we didn't get the impact statements because we got them earlier, who else spoke in the courtroom today?
A long list of people who believe that Donna Adelson is innocent. And she had multiple people who either spoke in person, by Zoom, or they sent a letter, and her attorney read those. And these people ran the gamut. It was childhood friends, adult friends, an employee that used to work for her, a Holocaust survivor, someone who said she helped her learn English when she was a child. I mean, there were so many people who talked about what a caring and devoted mother and wife and friend that she was, but there was also this theme that kept getting shut down by the judge, and it's people who wanted to talk about the issues with the trial. The judge said, look, we're not here to put complaints or quibbles about the trial on the record. Those are matters for an appeal. We are here about sentencing. Tell me about the character of this defendant. There was one witness who testified for Donna via Zoom, Dr. Ben Graber. Very eloquent in the way that he spoke about her and about the law. He felt like the intent of the legislature was not to punish people with life without parole for something that was domestic like this. But he did come the closest to giving an explanation or some kind of ownership about how Donna Adelson got here.
I do believe that Donna is a victim of not just circumstance, but has been actively exploited by parties involved in this case. However, having known her son and some of his issues, I believe Donna, in her own naive way, trying to be a loving mother, subdued by guilt, by silence, by denial, and perhaps even active exploitation, and used for activities she had no part of. So I believe she's innocent on all three counts, even though she was found guilty on all three counts.
Dr. Graber saying that he thinks that her son was the one who exploited her and used her in all of this, but something we didn't hear out of Donna Adelson's mouth. We also didn't hear it from this person, the father of Charlie Adelson, Wendy Adelson, the grandfather of those boys. I mentioned Harvey Adelson. He was there in the gallery, and for the first time, we heard him speak. We haven't heard him speak on the record. He hasn't testified at any trial, and even in the wiretaps and recordings of the Adelsons, his portion is very sparse, but his voice was booming inside of the courtroom.
She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. I have listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces. Donna did not participate in the heinous acts that she was convicted of doing. You're sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
Donna Adelson ultimately today sentenced to life in prison without parole on that top charge of murder and on conspiracy and solicitation, where there was some wiggle room, and the defense asked for 3 years. The state asked for 30 years. The judge did find 30 years. Consecutive to the top charge, but concurrent to each other, so life plus 30 years is what she was sentenced to, the same as Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine McBanawa. The one win, Vinnie, that she did get today is they asked the judge to recommend that she go to a facility that's near Miami, where Harvey is, and he did grant that. She just can't be in the same facility as Catherine McBanawa.
Julie, Janae, great coverage as always, great insight, and the big question still lingering, right? Is this the end of the Adelsons, or will there be more cases? Stay tuned for that. Julie, Janae, thanks so much. All right, folks, when we get back, we'll bring in our think tank, let them weigh in on what happened today. There they are. They're locked and loaded, ready to go. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, we take a look at cases where parents have tortured their own children. The Florida Ferreters, Ruby Franke, Shonda Vander Ark. Why would they do it? Tonight, we investigate.
The Court TV podcast will return.
I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place.
She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit.
As I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder.
Donna did not participate in the heinous acts that she was convicted of doing. You're sending an innocent woman to prison.
You know, it's only October, but it seems like Festivus has come early this year with the airing of the grievances by the Adelsons in the courtroom today. Let's bring in our think tank, see what they have to say about all of it. Criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland, and family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Great to see everyone. All right, let me throw it out there. What'd you think of the performance by the Adelsons? Al.
Well, I got to tell you, I hearkened back to a song by Freddie Boom Boom Cannon. Tallahassee lassie got a little sassy, but not real classy down in FLA. And that's what we saw. She got a little sass out there. She got a chance to kind of, tell what she wanted to say, not in front of a jury, not when it counted, not when the hand was on the Bible or anything along those lines. But she got a chance to be a little sassy. And then good old Harvey came in, and he gave a zing-zang to the judge and gave a little attack and gave some, very, very clear yelling, statements that were definitely attacking what the jury did, what the prosecution did, what the judge did. All of this was done, and it was useless. I mean, it was basically useless. She was going away for life without parole regardless. And what was done here, I have no idea other than a chance to, like you said, like Festivus, to, just voice out what all your grievances are with the people that are in this room. But, I mean, technically, it was about as useless as a comb in Darnell's pocket.
Well, so Vinnie, my thoughts on this is that I've always been conflicted. There's a part of sentencing that requires you to accept responsibility. And it's like in law school, the reasonable man standard. We don't really know if that means you have to admit the things you didn't do or you have to stay docile while you get sentenced for something you didn't do. But there should be a balance between advocating for your innocence and expressing the fact that you are remorseful. How you strike that balance, I guess the legal team and the defendant has to strike that balance. My opinion today is that balance was not struck at all. They went and said biased judge, unfair court, there's a whole setup. There was no balance. So yes, I'm very truculent, as I've been described by the members of the bar around here. But even in that truculence, you have to be able to strike a balance and know where you are, and that wasn't struck today.
Vinnie, I think that, I've kind of, in some ways, I wish she had testified to this at the trial, because maybe there would have been a different outcome for her. And I don't know why she was advised not to, because maybe the jury would have had some sympathy if she had pointed the finger at somebody else and said it wasn't her. The evidence didn't point in her direction, but she chose not to testify. And they didn't have Harvey testify either. So, it's a little too late to come now and start saying all of these things, because she's already been convicted. So this wasn't really the point. I think the judge was trying to tell her that this wasn't the time to be doing this. She has her right to appeal, but it's a little too late. She should have testified earlier on.
Yeah, she could have testified. Harvey could have testified, but Harvey maybe would have opened himself up to saying some things that might hurt him down the road, because one of the biggest grievances they were airing is that a lot of the evidence came about after the fact here, Al.
That's right. And, it really does say a lot that she didn't take the stand, and it also says a lot that he didn't take the stand. I think the two of them needed, I agree with Jennifer, the two of them needed to get on there. Not that I think it would have been that different, but it certainly would have given a different flavor to the case, and it probably would have made the state's case a little bit more difficult. If you get up there as the doting old grandmother and talk about how much you loved your former son-in-law,
maybe you got a
how
shot.
He was such a great father. Yeah, possibly.
But the truth came out. All right, Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, we've got another story involving a 23-year-old missing out of Philly. What's the latest in the search for Kada?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
This is Kada Scott, 23 years old, who is missing. Please take a close look at that photo. If you're anywhere in the Philadelphia area, if you have any information, please contact authorities as soon as possible. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Fill us in on the latest on this case. We're just getting information and gathering. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Vinnie, Kada Scott, 23 years old, been missing since October 4th. Now, she worked overnights at this senior living facility. It was called The Terrace at Chestnut Hill. Now, that night, she arrived normally in her car. Remember that. That's important in a second. She arrived in her car, but she left early before her shift ended. Some of her co-workers said they saw her just a little bit before she left, but she was present at work. Now, here's one of two kickers to this story, Vinnie. Police say she did not leave in her car, and her phone was off. Now, we're talking about a 23-year-old girl, Vinnie. I mean, you have young kids. You know they cannot get off of those phones.
The phone is on all the time.
All the time. Social media. She hasn't posted anything on TikTok, Instagram, any of that. We found out today as we were investigating she has multiple social media accounts, no updates at all. So police, of course, get involved once her family reports her missing, and they didn't specify the evidence, but the reporting says that evidence led them to this place called Auberry Arboretum. Now, if you're like me, I never heard of what an arboretum was, but it's pretty much a botanical garden. And we have a map of how close this arboretum was to Chestnut Hill. We can bring that on the screen now. It's obviously in Philadelphia, only 3.6 miles away, Vinnie. And this arboretum is 55 acres that police are actively searching right now, but not far away from where she worked. But remember, she did not leave in her car. They're actively searching this big plot of land now. It's just a bunch of trees, a bunch of plants.
And they're not, I mean, it's not arbitrary. They say there was some form of evidence that took them there.
That brought them there. They haven't specified the form, but there's a reason they're there. Now, the second kicker here, Vinnie. Police say that before she went missing, she told her friends that an unknown individual, or individuals, plural, they were harassing her by phone. So they're looking into that too. So that's just another layer to this strange story. Girl shows up, overnight shift at work, leaves early, doesn't come back. No one knows where she is.
All right, how about her family? What are they saying?
Well, so I reached out to both her mom and dad today, did not hear a response, but they have spoken out to CBS Philadelphia. Her mom spoke about those harassment allegations that she made to her friends. And Vinnie, we also heard from the captain, John Craig, with the Philadelphia Police Department. He spoke on the case as well. Let's take a listen to both of them.
Threatened, so we're a little concerned because she didn't tell us, of course, but other her friends, and she did mention it to them, but didn't give any names, names or anything like that. So we're trying to piece everything together to find out exactly who these people are.
We have a 23-year-old young lady who has completely disappeared. We have no cell phone activity or social media activity, and she's not reached out to family or friends.
And Captain John Craig, they're kind of emphasizing the point we were just making. 23 years old, phone is off. The phone is always on. The kids are not leaving home without the phone. But Vinnie also reached out to the Philadelphia Police Department to see if someone would want to speak with us in regards to this case. Here's what they told me. They said, quote, "Thank you for reaching out. At this time, we are unable to accommodate an interview with Deputy Commissioner Venor." He's been the one kind of speaking out about this to media. "Deputy Commissioner Venor or any other representative regarding the disappearance of Kada Scott. Please be advised that the investigation is now being led by the Homicide Unit. We will keep you updated with any new developments in the investigation. We appreciate your understanding." So, Vinnie, what does that mean? Homicide. That means they suspect some foul play here.
This is not someone who's just leaving on her own accord. There's a GoFundMe out there. How much have they raised, and what's going on?
Yeah, her father started the GoFundMe. His name is on it, but I'm sure it's the whole family. Not as lofty a financial goal as we typically see here at Court TV. They have a goal of $5,500. They've currently raised around $1,450, so it's, 26% of their goal there. Now, under that, he also writes, in part, quote, "We've established a verified reward fund for credible information that leads directly to Kada's safe recovery. Every dollar raised strengthens our ability to bring her home and encourages anyone with information to come forward. If Kada is found before the funds are distributed, or if law enforcement determines the reward is no longer necessary, any remaining balance will be donated to a verified missing persons organization or used to assist other families of missing persons. Updates will be shared publicly for full transparency." So they're going about this in the right and clean way.
Yeah, I can't imagine being her parents tonight. That is difficult. All right, Cody's going to stay on that story, obviously. Thanks so much. Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with us, Al Wunsch III, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt. Jennifer, this is in your part of the woods. What are your thoughts here? The homicide unit now in charge.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's been all over the news, local news. People are out there looking for her. Just such a suspicious set of circumstances here, Vinny. And I think, as we heard, I mean, any 23-year-old, especially one that was active on social media, just leaving her car, leaving her phone, sort of just evaporating, disappearing after a night shift at work. And, you know, people are out there looking for her. The Arboretum is a large area, a lot of trees, a lot of plants. But, you know, hopefully they'll be able to find something, find her, find, you know, some more evidence, see what happened to her. It's really terrible.
Yeah, what's the next step here, guys? What are your thoughts, Darnell?
Well, typically you look for the closest person to her. If there's a dating relationship, obviously she's too young here, but if she was older and she was married, if there's any issues with the husband, that kind of thing. But you don't see that here. So obviously, what we do know is that lately, I'm almost becoming, you know, the society is being desensitized with these missing and harmed and killed persons. It seems like a lot of people have mental illness and they just are grabbing people randomly off the street. That doesn't match the typical approach of looking again for the next person closest to you. It could be anyone. You know, we see, you know, this is a loving young lady. So, you know, your guess is as good as mine, but they've searched a big area. And hopefully, like usual, if there's someone connected, someone may call and say something or give some kind of a tip.
Yeah, Al, what I heard from Cody about the harassing phone calls that she was telling friends about, it seems like that's something that if you get the phone records, you know, the phone records from the phone companies of incoming, outgoing calls, that's a major potential lead if it happened and if it's connected.
Absolutely. And if that's going on, there's going to be other stuff that when they start talking to people, they may be getting more information from. I mean, this is just a horrific set of circumstances. And I mean, and who could logically believe that a 23-year-old leaving from the night shift at work is going to want to traipse through the trees and the shrubs at an arboretum? Okay, it makes no sense whatsoever. That's why they're moving it over to a homicide, because quite candidly, that's where you would do a homicide, in a place like that where it's off the beaten track, there's no one around for miles, and you can do what you needed to do. This guy needs to be found. And I'm sure, I mean, we just saw this in New Jersey with those two young girls that were brutally murdered by a guy who was harassing one of them. And now we see this again. It has to stop. We have to find a way to get this over with. And if you're out there and you're having trouble with somebody, tell your parents, tell your friends, tell the police. Okay, please.
Yeah, and Jennifer, the other thing, she's working this overnight type of shift, is leaving work a little early. The reason behind that could potentially be connected. But the other thing we know, she's leaving and in the dark.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, whoever knows her probably knew that she worked this night shift. I think it is connected to these calls. I mean, for sure. I think there's something there. She had, you know, she was telling people about it, not her parents, but others. So obviously this was disturbing to her. Somebody was bothering her. Somebody was after her. And it's just a matter of, you know, the police trying to make that connection. Because I think if they get to that person or persons, probably have a lot more clues as to what happened to this poor young girl.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key is, you know, share her picture, share the information, and hopefully the numbers go up on the GoFundMe for information, because sometimes that makes a difference. Maybe that pushes someone to do the right thing and make the call with the information they need. As always, thank you so much to our think tank, Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, and Jennifer Brandt. See you again really, really soon. When we come back, I'll reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, we take a look at cases where parents have tortured their own children. The Florida Ferreters, Ruby Franke, Shonda Vander Ark. Why would they do it? Tonight, we investigate.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Take a look at the big board. Home safe. Look at that image right there in the circle. That is a small child in the middle of a highway. This is a story that could have been extremely tragic, but we do have a happy ending tonight thanks to the North Point Police in Florida. We're going to show you the video. The child almost gets hit by a car, but then you'll see him rescued by police. Let's take a look.
Recently, while on patrol, Sergeant Shields saw a small child running down the side of US 41. The child, who has developmental delays, wandered from their home that night despite having safety devices in place to prevent something like this from happening. I want to emphasize that the parents in this case did everything that they could to prevent an occurrence like this, but unfortunately the child was able to manipulate the safeguards and get out of the home. It happens. Please provide grace to this family. This was a very terrifying time for them. We will show the dash cam footage, but please be prepared. It's not easy to watch. The child does almost get hit by a vehicle, but thanks to Sergeant Shields' quick thinking, the child was able to be safely reunited with his family.
Williams at Northport. I've got a small child running down the road in front of Lowe's. Just almost got hit by a car.
Once again, great job by the Northport Police down in Florida. The child is safe and home tonight. Speaking of children, take a look at your television screen. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Kira Elise Ramsey. Kira's just 16 years old, missing out of Leland, North Carolina since October 1st. If you see Kira, please pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. You can call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Leland Police Department in North Carolina. That phone number's on your screen right now. Let's see if we can get Kira to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.